Today's lesson is VPNs, hiding your digital footprints. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And this is Helen.
And today we're going to be talking about something called VPNs. And basically, those are kind of addresses online so you can avoid being in direct contact with other people or other sites out there that can cause problems for you. It's kind of like a third party involved in the transactions between you and the internet.
Right, and you can use VPNs to hide your digital footprint. So the word digital refers to anything that's related to computers or the internet. You can talk about digital technology, which is another way to say computer or internet technology. And as mentioned, with a VPN, you can hide your digital footprint. Now, the word footprint, it refers to the mark that your foot makes when you step on a soft surface like sand or snow. But in the world of the internet, it can also mean data that you leave behind after you've been online. So, for instance, when you navigate a social media website and then you click on certain pages, you leave a footprint because the website knows that you visited these pages and they can use that information and direct marketing to you or other things like that.
Yeah, I think they track you with cookies. Of course, when you go on the internet, you leave these traces behind and they can figure out where you are. And so that's one way to leave a digital footprint. And we're talking about hiding our digital footprints so they can't find us and send us stuff we don't want. So let's find out what this is all about. Let's listen to the first part of our lesson and then we will discuss it.
VPNs, hiding your digital footprints. Most people are aware of the importance of protecting their personal information when browsing the internet. Relatively few people, however, take steps to increase their digital privacy. If you want to protect your online identity but don't know where to start, you could use a virtual private network, VPN.
大家好，我们看到标题中的形容词 digital， 它的意思是数位的或是数字的。例如 I saved the digital recordings on a CD. 我把这些数位录音档存在一片光碟片里。又或者说 This program lets you create your own digital music. 这个程式让你创作自己的数位音乐。接下来我们来介绍名词 footprint， 它有足迹或是脚印的意思。例如 I could see footprints on the sand, so I knew there were other people around. 我能看到沙地上的足迹，所以我知道有其他人在附近。又或者说Sally used her own footprint as material to create this piece of work. Sally 以自己的脚印作为素材，创作了这幅作品。再来，我们看到名词 privacy， 它有隐私权或是独处的意思。例如 To protect his privacy, Ian does not put any pictures of himself online. 为了保护隐私 ，Ian 不在网络上放任何他的照片。又或者说 The movie star wants to protect his privacy from reporters. 这位电影明星想要保护隐私，不被记者报道。另外补充相关形容词 private， P-R-I-V-A-T-E private， 它的意思是私人的或是秘密的。例如 The rock star owns a private jet. 那位摇滚巨星拥有一架私人喷射机。再举一个例子 This area is private, so you cannot enter. 这是私人区域，所以你不能进入。下一个我们看到形容词 virtual， 意思是电脑上虚拟的或是实际上的。例如 The program allows users to create and care for a virtual pet. 这个程式让使用者可以创造及照顾虚拟宠物。或是 The game allows players to create a virtual world on their computer. 这款游戏让玩家在自己的电脑上创造虚拟世界。
Most people are aware of the importance of protecting their personal information when browsing the internet. That's true. So that's something that most people are aware of already. They want to protect their personal information by having secure passwords. For instance, you don't want your password to be 1234 or ABCD. You want a secure password. That is a way of protecting your personal information. And when you're browsing the internet, it's especially important to protect your personal information. When you browse the internet, internet, you're looking for information on the computer, on Google, for instance, and things like YouTube. You could be browsing YouTube for interesting videos to watch over lunchtime.
Exactly. And of course, personal information involves things like your credit card number, your ID number, your full name, your address, and stuff like that. And sometimes we just don't want other people to know those things. When we order things online and we submit our credit card number, we don't want other people to see that number. So, of course, we hope that the connection is secure and that nobody is hacking in onto our account here. And, of course, when you're on the internet looking at various things, going to different sites, you are browsing the internet. Sometimes when you go into a store, you could say, oh, I'm just browsing. I don't need anything. Thank you for asking. And so in this particular case, yes, we want our information to be secure. Relatively few people, however, take steps to increase their digital privacy. So if you take steps to do something, that means you go through all the necessary procedures to achieve some kind of result. Okay, so of course we want to guarantee our digital privacy. Privacy is when we're all by ourselves and nobody else can see us or talk to us. For example, people in Sweden like to live by themselves because they value their privacy. They don't like having other people around.
Right. Privacy can also refer to the freedom to do things without other people knowing about it or watching you do it. A lot of people value privacy because they don't want people being nosy about what you're doing, what they're doing. And there are other people who don't care so much about privacy. They're fine with others knowing what they're doing and what they're thinking, what they're reading, etc., etc. So when we talk about digital privacy, we're talking about things that you do that you don't want other people to know about on the internet. So, for instance, you may not want certain people to know what websites you have visited, what things you have bought on Amazon. These are all related to digital privacy.
Right. So if you want to protect your online identity but don't know where to start, you could use a virtual private network or VPN. So that's what the letters VPN stand for, virtual private network. So virtual here means like reality. It's not real, but it looks a lot like reality. Like a virtual reality, of course, is when you wear those special goggles and it takes you to places in the world. It seems like you're really there, but you aren't really, so that's why we call it virtual reality, almost reality, or simulated reality. And this is a virtual private network, which means it should be private, but it's simulating that feeling, and hopefully it is very private. And we'll talk about exactly how it works in just a couple of seconds. As we move on now to the second part, let's listen.
A VPN hides your device's IP address by sending your traffic through a secure network. Think of it as a mailbox in a remote location. Instead of sending a letter directly to a recipient, you send it to the mailbox. Once the letter arrives, it's placed in another envelope and forwarded to the recipient, but with a return address that isn't yours. This means that the recipient doesn't know where the letter came from.
第二部分我们看到单字 device， 它是名词，指的是装置、设备或是仪器。例如 I bought a device last week that will keep the air in my room clean. 我上礼拜买了一台可以让我房里空气保持干净的装置。或是 Cars have many safety devices that keep drivers from getting injured when accidents occur. 汽车有许多安全装置，可以防止驾驶人在发生事故时受伤。
So what exactly is a virtual private network or VPN, and what does it do? Well, a VPN hides your device's IP address by sending your traffic through a secured network. First of all, it hides your device's IP address. So your device is your mobile phone or your computer. That's what it is in this context. But in general, a device is a machine or a piece of equipment that you use to accomplish a specific thing. So a printer is a device as well because it performs a specific task, which is to print documents or print photos. That's a printer. A printer is a device. But here we're talking about computers and tablets and smartphones, such devices. And such devices have IP addresses. An IP address is an Internet Protocol address, which is a code, a series of numbers that represent a particular computer. So when you want to identify where a message came from, for instance, an email address, you would look up the IP address that the email originated from. That way you identify the sender.
Right, so we all have an IP address, and when we browse the internet, of course, other people can find out what our IP address is. But in this particular case, a VPN will hide your IP address. They won't let anybody else see it. And this is done by sending your traffic through a secure network. So here, traffic just refers to the communication you're doing online. You're sending information, you're receiving information. That is online traffic. And your online traffic is sent through a secure network in order to hide your IP address.
Right. So every time you visit a website, information is downloaded. As Roger had mentioned before, cookies are downloaded. And then you also upload information without yourself knowing about it. So all of this uploading and downloading of information together form the traffic that your device is engaged in.
Well, this is kind of a difficult concept to understand. So think of it or imagine it as a mailbox in a remote location. So think of yourself as being at home, and then the internet website you want to check out is at another location, and then between those or in another location we have a mailbox in a remote or far away location, and instead of sending a letter directly to a recipient, you send it to the mailbox. So yes, indeed, sometimes, of course, if you want to send a letter to your Aunt Julie in Texas or something like that, you'll send the letter directly to her. She is the recipient of your letter, but instead of doing that, you send it to that remote mailbox.
Yes, and here the word recipient is simply another way of saying receiver. When you receive something, you are the recipient. When you send something, you're the sender.
Okay, so once the letter arrives, it's placed in another envelope and forwarded to the recipient, but with a return address that isn't yours. So that's what happens. You send that letter to your Aunt Julie in Texas to that remote location. They receive it there, and then the letter is taken out of the envelope and placed in another envelope and then forwarded to that recipient. So if you forward something, that means you continue with the message, you received it, and then you send it on to somebody else.
Right, so that's how a VPN works. And this means that the recipient doesn't know where the letter came from because it made all of these different stops before it arrived at the final recipient. And that's how you mask or hide your IP address. And this is how using a VPN can give you more privacy.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's listen now to the third part.
Similarly, when you connect to a VPN, your internet traffic is sent to a remote server, which then sends it to the website you're trying to access. The VPN server replaces your IP address with its own, making it difficult for websites, advertisers, and hackers to discover your location and track your behavior. Your online activities remain private and secure, just as your home address remained hidden in the remote mailbox example.
第三部分我们看到单字 server， 它是名词，指的是伺服器。例如 I was unable to get the email you sent because there were problems with the server at my company. 我无法收到你的电子邮件，因为我们公司的伺服器出了问题。又或者说 We are having trouble with our servers, so our website is currently shut down. 我们伺服器遇到一些问题，所以我们的网站目前暂时关闭。最后我们看到名词 hacker， 指的是骇客，非法入侵他人电脑的人。举例来说 Liam tried to protect all his files as the hacker hacked into his computer. Liam 试图在骇客入侵他的电脑时保护他所有的文件。最后一个例子 Our company had several experiences of being invaded by hackers. 我们的公司有过好几次被骇客入侵的经验。
Similarly, when you connect to a VPN, your internet traffic is sent to a remote server, which then sends it to the website you're trying to access. So a VPN functions in another way. When you connect to a VPN, your traffic is sent to a remote server. A server is a computer that controls or performs a particular job for all the computers in a network. So you can imagine your computer in a network, so it's connected to many other computers, but among these other computers, there is a server. And this server is like the central brain. It's what controls all of the computers that are connected to it and connected to each other.
Right, so you have that internet traffic, it goes to a remote server, and then that internet traffic is sent to the website you're trying to access. So in the same way, that website won't know where your information is coming from because it's going through that remote server. And the VPN server replaces your IP address with its own, making it difficult for websites, advertisers, and hackers to discover your location and track your behavior. So just like that letter you're trying to send to somebody, you're trying to send that letter to a recipient, it goes to that remote location, it gets taken out of the envelope and put in another envelope with a different return address on it. The same thing happens with the VPN server. It will replace your IP address with its own, and then those other websites or those advertisers or those hackers won't know where you originally sent the message from. Now, a hacker, of course, is somebody who does not like to do nice things to people on the internet. They steal your information. They try to send Trojans to your computer or ransomware or whatever. They basically try to screw up your computer. And yes, indeed, we don't want hackers getting into our computers, trying to tell us that they'll change the codes unless we pay them a certain amount of money.
Yes, although sometimes hackers can do good if they get hired by a company or the government to combat the bad hackers who want to attack the networks and computer systems of that company or the government.
Exactly. Yes, I should admit that the word hacker does look like it's negative most of the time, but as Helen said, there are good hackers out there. But I think for most of us, when we see the word hacker, it kind of scares us. We don't want them to get our information and to get into our computer. So this is a method in which you send your internet traffic to an internet site, but it goes through a VPN and your IP address gets changed to their address, and then these people won't know where you are, so they can't send you stuff you don't want. And your online activities remain private and secure, just as your home address remained hidden in the remote mailbox example. So that's how this basically works. You want your online activities to remain private and secure. You don't want other people seeing what you're doing because then they'll record all your information and use it with you or use it against you in the future. Most oftentimes, of course, you receive advertisements from people that you weren't expecting, but it's like, how did they know I was looking up information about home improvement? I suddenly got a bunch of advertisements telling me to go to Home Depot and buy these things. How did they know that?
That's right. So when you use a VPN, many advantages come along with it. You can protect your privacy. You can prevent hackers from discovering your location, tracking your behavior. So VPNs are really good for certain things. And as we will see later, VPNs can also be used in other ways.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's turn things over now to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始提到，大多数人都知道在浏览网络时保护个人资讯的重要性，然而相对只有少数人采取措施来提升他们的数位隐私。文中是用 take steps 来表达采取措施，那么 step 当名词，它就有一步、脚步或是步伐的意思，可以引申表达做事情过程中的措施啊、步骤、阶段等等。好，那么 take steps 就可以表达采取步骤、采取行动、采取措施。之后可以接不定词 to be， 也可以接 toward 加上名词或动名词。 好，那我们这边也补充2个相关用法。第一个是 take action，action 它表示行动行为，那 take action 就是表达采取行动。我们可以在 action 的前面加上形容词，像 take effective action 就是采取有效行动， take immediate action 表示采取立即的行动等等。好，那么在 take action 后面还可以接不定词 to be。举例来说 ，We should start taking action to protect the environment before it's too late。我们应该趁早开始采取行动来保护环境。好，那第2个补充的是 take measures。measure 它当名词可以表达措施方法。那么 take measures 就是表达采取措施，在这个片语当中 measures 固定要用复数形哦。那一样它前面也可以加形容词来修饰。举例来说 The country took strong measures to contain the virus。 那个国家采取强硬的措施来遏制这个病毒。好，那么读到课文第3部分的第2句，他写说 VPN 伺服器会用自己的 IP 位置替换你的 IP 位置。那么后面接着有提到说 Making it difficult for websites, advertisers, and hackers to discover your location and track your behavior。 这使得网站、广告商和骇客难以发现你的位置和追踪你的行为。好，那我们现在如果把这个句子结构简化，它其实就是用到 make it difficult for somebody to do something 来表达使某人难以做某事。好，我们这边先补充一下，当我们用 make加受词加受词补语，可以表达使某人或某事物成为什么，变得怎么样。那么动词 make 在这边是表达使变得、使成为。那受词后面的这个受词补语可以是名词或形容词，像我们说 dancing makes me happy， 跳舞使我变得快乐。那这边的 happy 这个形容词就是当受词补语用。好，那可是现在如果我们的受词呢是要用不定词 to be， 那就不能把它写作 make 加上 to be 再加受词补语，而是要改用虚受词 it 来代替这个受词的位置，然后把真正的受词 to be 移到句尾，那句型就变成 make it受词补语，然后才接不定词 to be。 那在不定词前面你还可以加上 for somebody。 举例来说 The heavy rain made it impossible for us to continue the game。 大雨使我们无法继续比赛。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Digital. The company's digital marketing strategy was successful in reaching a wider audience. Browse.Jason browses the internet on his smartphone for hours before he falls asleep. Privacy. Carol values her privacy and prefers to keep her personal life separate from her work life. Virtual. Virtual meetings have become increasingly common at many companies in recent years. Device. The new medical device could change the way doctors treat several conditions. Recipient.The recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize was invited to give a speech. Server. Cameron couldn't download the files because the server was down.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.